Morning and welcome to another opportunity for me and John here to take you through some technical questions and answers. So, John, we've just been talking about where we've been, but you've been busy this week. But I think I've been. Hold on a minute, let me work it out. Tamworth first thing in the week. So this is me and Jake. Jake's on the other side of the camera, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. So we've been Tamworth beginning of the week. Then we went off to Manchester. Then we came up to a little bit more into Bury. I left Jake there, had to go home. Jake continued on to Durham.
Yeah.
Now we're here.
Full lives, we live full lives.
And that's only 1 week. Oh my God, so only 1 week. What we're going to do is, we're going to start off by looking at some of the questions that were submitted off the back of our last one we did.
Yes,
so we've got some here that came in, John. So we're going to start to go through them. As we're going, please feel free to submit your technical questions. We want to do this live, so if you're watching this now, as so many of you are, we can see them coming in now. Please put your questions in, and we can see them now, can't we? We can see them as the questions. Well, I can see them.
I can't see you, Darren. Yeah, I can only see you.
So we'll be taking those as we go. You join us here in, again, one of our other technical rooms here. This is our technical training centre down in Dunstable, and we've got some examples of what some people have been doing. Here's one I've done earlier, John. So we've got
Yeah, you're coming on nicely there, Darren.
So we've got this room for about the next hour and a bit. So let's see how we're getting on. We'll start to take some questions here. We've got this one here. This is from Jonathan Baxter. So thank you very much to Jonathan for looking at this one here. More and more electronics are being connected into the installations. Now we know this when we're going around doing our tech talks. We're seeing lots more people selling product that has got electronic bias to it. So he wants to know then: is it becoming more acceptable to do when you look at insulation resistance tests, to join line and neutral, and then test to earth? Is that pretty much the acceptable way to go now?
Well, I think this is a bigger question. I think it's a very good question, because as you quite rightly identify, electronics are more prevalent now, but not least in lots of electronic equipment. Live and neutral and earth are a viable circuit.
They are, yeah.
And so we need to be aware of that. I think I'd like to answer this really in a more general way and say that we believe it's very important that during the erection phase, the tests are our IR tests are undertaken at 500 volts as prescribed. And in fact, throughout the process, wherever possible, tests should be conducted at 500 volts. Yeah,
and that's really good that you hit on that, because the new box allows you to record the value that you're testing at.
Yes.
But we still want to see 500 volts done, don't we?
We typically would. The regulations have always, or certainly lately, allowed us to test at 250 volts where appropriate. It's important to say that the results remain the same.
Yeah.
But I think what we need to do is, if you're running wiring through metallic containment or through metal frameworks, it's important that you satisfy yourself that there is no unintended connection between live conductors and that metal.
Now, one thing I will elaborate on is we've done this test with a number of people. We've been out on site and they're showing us this, and they're doing it per circuit, so they're actually doing it to earth, they're doing it to CPC, thinking they're getting really good values, and unfortunately they're not. All of a sudden, once they put that into the MET, that's when it's letting them down.
It's important to test between the metalwork you're concerned about and the live conductors, and also, bearing in mind that wherever you can isolate loads, so you can test at 500 volts, you should do so. If you're if it's not possible or practical, or you're uncertain, then 250 volts between live conductors and earth is acceptable.
So as Jonathan says here, between live conductors, I would combine neutral and line together, one crocodile clip with the other one, then go down to my earth. But as you said there, that could still be a problem, because you're still going to get some voltage go between the neutral and the earth now. So watch out.
If you're not able to isolate the load, or you're not certain that you are, or you're not certain that it's isolated from each other, then do the 250 volt check. But wherever you can, do the 500 volt check.
Now, when we're talking about disconnecting these, we are talking about truly disconnecting them and isolating them. So, for instance, all these low voltage or extra low voltage downlighters that we're seeing, it's hard to do, but you can get there's a flow connector out there now. There's lots of other different ones that are out there as well.
SPDs
not just flow.
Are another issue.
They're another one.
You are required to provide isolation for SPDs, and please, don't be testing these things on 500 volts.
No, they do recognise it as an over voltage. Yes. And so SPDs, if you are installing SPDs, which I think we're coming on to a little bit later on,
yes,
one of these questions, again, it can be a problem there. So look at that and look at how you're doing it. Some people just take the cartridge out that's got it, remember you put it back in after. That's the big one there, isn't it? Yeah. Someone's asking us here. Now I'm not going to go too much into this one. Michael, you've asked us off the back of the last one, can we go through the calculation? This is for SPDs. Now I'm going to say yes, we can. However, we've just done an article on it, and that article is about to be signed off. So a bit like last time we sat here, we've done an article on SPDs where they should be considered.
Yes.
You're telling me now, about to press the button on one looking at this.
It's about to be published, and quite frankly, it's quite a big subject.
Yeah.
And there's lots of variation and variables in it. So what I prefer to do at this time is to leave that subject just for now. We're going to be doing a webinar in March,
okay,
and we'll be covering SPDs in the webinar.
Yeah.
In conjunction with the article, hopefully it'll answer your questions. At this time, it's a big subject, and I'd rather not cover it today because it'll take up too much time.
Right, so Michael, what we're telling you now is we will be coming back onto that one. There's going to be a separate webinar where we've asked John and another member of his team to go through that subject, really looking at that risk assessment. So if it's not one of the first 4 bullet points, you refer to the risk assessment, and that's what John's going to be looking at.
We'll be covering SPDs in the round.
Yeah, we'll be looking at that, and again, it does warrant its own time, doesn't it, to look at that one. So we won't answer that today, Michael, but however, it is on the agenda for us to look at and do. So we're looking at that one. Right, now, someone else has asked here. Someone's asked us, at domestic properties, so they were sitting in domestic here, is the new consumer unit, does it have to have dual RCD or can it have one RCD on it?
Well, the answer is yes, it can. The consideration, of course, is Regulation 314, division of an installation.
Yeah, that's what I was going to point you into that one, yeah.
You know, we have to make sure that the operation of the RCD doesn't affect circuits that normally wouldn't be affected by it. And so, typically, one way of doing it would be to have dual RCDs.
Yeah.
Another way, of course, would be to have RCBOs.
Yeah. Now, when we're going around the country doing our talks as we do, we ask lots of people, put your hand up if you're installing RCBOs or you're going the dual road. It's about 50-50 split at the minute. We're seeing a lot more people now move over to installing RCBOs. Some manufacturers have brought the cost down so it's making it viable now.
Yes, indeed.
So some of them are doing that, and it gets rid of that problem, doesn't it? That you spoke about division of circuits.
It's an effective solution. There's no doubt about it. It's a cost-benefit issue.
Yeah.
The contractor needs to decide if they can actually sell that solution to the customer after explaining the benefits. I think electrically, it's a great solution.
Now, what about a one-bed flat, like a bed sit or something like that? You've got a bed sit. Could you have an RCD there?
Yeah. Look, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Once again, Regulation 314 says you need to divide the installation so it can function reliably, and the operation of the RCD won't affect circuits that wouldn't normally be connected or associated with each other.
Now, we have had some contractors come to us, and I'm trying to think where we was. We were up in Darren, again, where Jake's been this week. They were saying to us that they've got the main head, and from there they're running a 16mm twin and earth into sort of 4 or 5 metres into the installation. They were trying to put a main RCD at the front there and then put a split load board at the other end.
Yeah.
That's some problems there, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is, you know. I mean, that's about design.
Yeah.
And that's about considering the type of cable and how it's run and where it's run. But yeah, you've got a problem there because you haven't coordinated those RCDs. And any operation of those dual RCD boards will cause the operation of the main RCD. So effectively, you've got one RCD.
You've got one RCD chucking the lot out, haven't you? So again, there are some problems there. Right, another one here we've got in a single dwelling, or does it say, though it's not required, are we still having to give the clients the choice of installing or not installing SPDs?
Well, I have to clarify that. We've never said that they're not required.
Yeah.
We've said that typically
they're
not required.
Yeah.
Typically. But I think we've been at great pains to emphasise that there's great benefit in discussing the added benefits to a client of having SPDs and other devices. We need to discuss the benefits for the client and let them. It's a collaborative effort. Let them make the decision. So we're not saying you don't put them in dwellings. We're saying that typically they're not required in dwellings. However, always discuss the benefits with your customer.
So Johnny Kane put that question to us, and what I'm going to say, Johnny Kane, if you're registered with NIC, EIC or Alexa, you can go to the customer portal, so you can go to that, and there's lots and lots of fantastic stuff there. One of them is that article that we spoke about and launched actually this time last month, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That looks at that, and again it moves into the last part of it, looks at the requirements required and single dwelling units.
Yes.
And it says there, generally there is no requirement, however you may want to consider blah blah blah.
Yeah,
it talks about that.
We use the word typically.
Typically, sorry.
In most dwellings, there's not an absolute requirement, as opposed to many commercial and industrial installations. However, there may be benefits. Please discuss them with your client. Anything that improves enhances the safety or the usability of an installation should be considered and discussed.
So we'll look at that one there. Right, we've got another one here. So Johnny, go to that customer service portal and have a look at that one. That would be great for you to do, and you'll get hold of that. You can print it off. It's a document you can print off in PDF. You can have a look at that.
Yes, it is.
Yes, you can have a look at that one. It was also, wasn't it in our Connections magazine?
Yes,
as well?
It's a Connections article that actually what we did, because as you might imagine, we were inundated with questions on SPDs and AFDDs. We brought that article forward to our customer portal, and in fact it has had a dramatic effect on the number of questions we're now being asked about SPDs.
Right, okay, Simon, now we're on to a question that came in from Simon. Right, why have we removed towel sizes and the maximum demand from the EICR reports? So it's your fault. Why have you removed it? Come on, why have you taken it out?
It's a very simple answer. It's because they didn't reflect the model forms. It's as simple as that, guys. The model forms have never required that. And so we just fall into line with that. Listen, if you feel it's important, record it on another piece of paper and attach it to your certificate and relate it to the certificate reference.
What we're seeing a lot of contractors tell us they are doing is they're using the first line on the top of the test result schedule. That's the first line they're doing. They're using that to record tails or distribution circuits, they're calling it.
Listen, as long as it doesn't confuse,
that's a big one.
Or as long as it doesn't use space that should be used for something else, you can adapt that form within reason. To provide information to the next person to come across that form. By all means. And if you need to add more information, please feel free to add a sheet, as long as you reference it back to the original certificate.
Right, Neil Rollins has asked us this one here. Carrying out an EICR, this is to the 18th edition. I think I've got to correct you there. We don't carry out EICRs in line with the standard. You do an EICR to prove it's satisfactory for continuous and safe, don't you? That's the big reason for doing it.
We actually assess it against the current regulations, and then we look at compliances or non-compliances, and then we risk assess
the best of benefits. So he goes on to say then he's got an existing EV charging point here, which is connected to the PME. Now this was about an earth electrode. So he's saying the old regs would allow you to do that, wouldn't they? Would allow you to export the PME. If you couldn't get away with one of the three requirements, it would allow you to do it. However, now the regs have changed.
The big difference was in the third amendment. We said, look, these are three alternatives to exporting PME. By the way, if you can't,
if it's not practical,
then crack on with the PME. Which I have to say was just a little bit confusing. So the 18th is far more direct and says you won't export PME. Now you're talking about an EICR where the question's not. We've assumed this is what the gentleman's requiring, but it's actually saying, is it a C3 or is it a C2? Well, the thing is, it wasn't previously a requirement.
No.
So, if not readily achievable, possible C3. If you say that it's there's potential benefit in what's the benefit?
That's the thing.
I think what's important is that it's a socket outlet. It should be asked to be protected anyway. Because it's for use outside.
Approaching that one, you'd say, look, is it going to give you electric shock or is it going to burst into flames now? It's definitely not a C1 then.
Was it dangerous when it was installed or potentially dangerous when it was installed?
That's
no, therefore it can't be a C2.
So it can't be a C2. So you'd say there, does it need improving? Is it safe as it sits there? Is it safe as it sits there?
Would it benefit from improving? Well, okay, you may consider it does. Would you be able to explain how?
And again, the method would be either to TT that, install one of these isolation transformers we spoke about on the last one.
But that was for a new installation. I mean,
for news.
This is an EICR, so we're looking retrospectively. It wasn't dangerous then.
It
doesn't become dangerous now.
Just straight instantly overnight. There's no change to the safety.
It's no less safe now.
So, in answer to your question, is it C2 or C3? I think conjectures here is that it's definitely going to be looking for a C3 for there.
I think a maximum C3, but once again, if someone says, what benefit do I get, you need to explain.
Again, as long as you can put that bias down towards that. Now Joe's asked us quite an open question here. Joe, if you're watching today, your question here.
This could take some time.
Well, it's either going to be the longest question and answer in the world or the shortest. What do we do with bonding? I'll give the short one. Don't worry about it. You can give the long one.
Okay, Joe. I'm assuming, and this is always a risky strategy, but what do we do with bonding? I'm assuming that you're referring to the change in the 18th where we say where we have an insulating insert, we don't need to.
That's the bit, that last little bit, isn't it?
I believe so. Look, in a nutshell, if it's an extraneous conductive part, we bond it. If it's not an extraneous conductive part, and I think the inclusion of the description of an insulating insert was designed to emphasise that it couldn't introduce a potential, generally earth potential insulation, therefore would not be considered an extraneous conductive part, and therefore there's no point in bonding it. And in some cases you can actually create a hazard that didn't exist previously if you get a network failure or a problem with the network where we lose our pen conductor. However, if I've got an insulating insert, and I don't want to confuse things, guys, because the regulation's clear and it says there's no need to bond, but you do need to be satisfied that that metallic surface doesn't come into substantive contact with earth later on in the installation.
That's the bit, isn't it?
Now, if you was to measure it in the installation, you would invariably find that it returns an earth potential because it's connected through the earthing arrangement, through the boilers, immersion heaters, and all the
CPCs,
other tanks,
stuff like that.
So, unless to determine whether or not something's extraneous on an EICR in the installation is a big task. You need to be sure that you've disconnected all CPCs.
Yeah.
That that you're actually measuring the bonding conductor and that bonding part on its own.
On its own.
The reg is clear. If I've got an insulating insert, there's no need to consider it as an extraneous conductive part. We just advise a little bit of caution in the unusual circumstances where, and it has to have. I use the word substantive. If it just sits on the earth, we're talking about enters the earth and re-emerges.
Yeah.
Re-emerging
pipework is the big one. Now I think that's the big thing here. Now let's get into. We are not saying that regulation all of a sudden now means you don't have to worry about bonding any gas, water, or anything comes in. It's looking at the word above it, extraneous conductive part, isn't it? Does that now become an extraneous conductive part? And that's the bit that I really want people to understand. There's three parts to that rule of an extraneous conductive part. One is it metallic. I think people are saying, it's conductive, it's metallic, it goes through the installation as metal. However, it's coming in plastic, but it goes through the installation in metal. The second part is it in contact with the general mass of Earth? And you said there, it really has to be in contact with the general mass of Earth. Does it introduce that Earth potential into the equipotential zone? Them three rules are what you need to consider. And you can measure against it, however,
it would also need to be simultaneously accessible
to anything else.
With exposed conductive parts.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's no risk, don't create bonding it for the sake of it.
Well, that's we see that with a lot of metal stairs. A lot of metal stairs. People say it's a big metal staircase, big lump of metal. We've got to bond it. Actually, probably no, you won't have to. If there's nothing there.
That's not for the membrane.
It's not like that. Yeah.
You see it with compressors sitting on concrete plates.
You do.
That's not actually earth potential.
Yeah, that's the big one there. Identifying if it is or is not that earth potential. So we're looking at that one there. So in answer to Joe's question there, what do you do with bonding? We've sort of answered it. If you want to chip back in,
that's the answer, Joe. We hope that's the question.
So let's look at that one there. Right, Claire's put a question to us. She wants to know here, John. Then she says, cables in trunking on EICRs without retaining clips. I'm assuming then she means metal retaining clips.
And I'm assuming she's meaning plastic trunking?
Yeah, that's the one I'm reading into this as well. Yeah. What are your thoughts on coding this installation? So you turn up to an installation, you're seeing some plastic trunking probably running down a corridor or something like that. Aesthetically, it looks absolutely great. However, in there are some cables that, if the fire was in that part of the installation, pop the lid off and all of a sudden the cables come down. Yeah. What we're looking at coding wise?
I would probably, in most cases, I would say that would be a C2. That was potentially dangerous because there's a risk of entanglement, and this whole debate and the regulations that flow from it came about entanglement. It came about based on entanglement.
That's the thing, isn't it? Yeah.
So if there's a risk of entanglement, then that's potentially dangerous.
Now, if it's just like a one cable down a wall into like a living room or something like that controls a socket, that popping off, again, you've got to look at the risk there. And you may want to say that one, risk of entanglement, very, very minimal. You may want to say, however, it needs improvement. But in those areas, those corridors, those main thoroughfares where it's true, everyone's going to use it to get out, or everyone's going to use it to come in to get you out. That's the thing, isn't it?
It's a main route, it's a main means of ingress or egress, and the regulation actually says that you should consider other means of ingress and egress, which is what you're discussing.
Yeah.
So if it goes across a window,
that's it.
For instance, you want to give that some thought.
Yeah, because let's be honest, a firefighter is going to use the quickest means available to get you out, and that may be, rather than fighting the fire to get to you, they'll come through a window to get to you. So they may look at that one as well. So consider that.
If you're confused, remember what it's about. It's about avoiding entanglement. So if cables can collapse or containment can collapse, and cables can then be unsupported and can cause entanglement, then you need to make sure that can't happen.
Now we're seeing best practice guide number 4 has been rewritten, and we're looking at that one there. So best practice guide number 4 has been updated and should include some of these. So please consider going and getting hold of that best practice guide number 4. Now again, customer portal's got them one, isn't it?
As far as I know, I've learned something today. I didn't realise that best practice guide 4 was actually published yet.
I think it's going to come out. They've been doing the updated changes.
I know they've been doing the changes. Is it available now?
Yeah, they're going to look to launch that one. So best practice guide number 4. Even if you go to electrical safety first, you can get that via professional. You can get that bit at the top there. Click on the link at the top. You'll get hold of that. Yeah. It's a PDF and it's free. It's free.
The Q&A has been updated.
That bit has. Now that's on the left-hand side. So if you go to professional resources on electrical safety, you click on the bit there. There's a bit there on the left-hand side. You click on that and you get the choice and options to look at those. Again, lots of codes.
It's an excellent site.
It's super. That's the industry. I think that's the big thing.
It's an industry agreed. It's an industry agreed Q&A.
Yeah.
So all the big players in the industry have come together and agreed those answers. So you're pretty sure that you're safe.
I mean, people have said to us before, is there a book you can go for codes and bits and bobs like that? So actually, better than that, it's free. It's free. Practice guide number 4. Yeah. And there's lots of other guides. There's even an app for it. There's an app for everything nowadays, John. There's an app for it. You can get the app and you can have a look at that app. That's not a problem as well. But also, I want to just mention about this entanglement problem, because people have been asking us really about dado trunking, plastic dado trunking. Does that have to have metal insert or metal containment in it as well? So like a metal clip or something.
You know, although originally we were talking about BA, I mean, if I trip over,
that's the bit. Any entanglement, isn't it?
It's about entanglement. It's about not being able to move freely, or as freely as they normally would be able to, in a rescue situation or a fire situation. So personally, I would say yes.
Any entanglement, There may be some data trunking that's behind desks or furniture and stuff like that. You may say, actually, no, there's going to be not a lot on there at all. But you may see it and say, actually, that's absolutely fine. Don't forget to submit your questions if you want to. We've got access to the questions, so please put them questions to us. Let's have a look at what you've got coming in. There's a number of you that are looking, so please make sure you just put your questions to us. Just ask a question, and me and John will see if we can put our heads together and come up with some sort of answer for you. We hope we're getting through these ones as well. Another one here is, what would the coding be? This is around SPDs, okay, right. So what would the code be? So in other words here, what would you suggest on no SPDs installed within a single dwelling unit?
That depends on the risk. So what's the risk that's perceived? I mean, in fact, if there is a risk, you should really be installing it. So
it's a very open.
I think it's a very open question. I mean, on the basis that we've already said that typically there's no requirement, then there would logically be no code.
Yeah.
If you believe, however, that there is a clear risk, and by the way, this is on EICR, so a lot of this won't have happened yet. So the next one may be the first one. You know what? I'm thinking that. Once again, you're going to max out the C3, but then you're going to have to do some fancy talking to justify it. I think you're going to have to really struggle to say that it's potentially dangerous.
Yeah, again, there's a lot of things around C3, but C3 would be the improvement recommended. However, if the installation's been there for so long and there's no risk identified, then you can say, actually, I think the installation's safe for continued use for another 5 years, 10 years, whatever you're looking to put there. I think we're going to see a lot more of this coming, a lot more questions around coding, because the private rented sector, as we know about, is going to go through legislation changes. So that's going to see a lot of people want to do some periodic inspection and testing in private rented sector. So a lot more see.
I think that there will probably be, and this is a personal opinion. I'm imagining that there will be more regulatory requirement to test and inspect on a regular basis, particularly in I would imagine the private rented sector.
Yeah, we're being told apparently the legislation is going to come out with 5 years. So 5 years, a dwelling within the private rented sector is going to need something.
That's been discussed.
Yeah.
There seems to be some ministerial support for that.
Yeah.
We'll let you know as soon as we know.
Yeah, we are trying our hardest to work with them, and there's a working group set up that
Absolutely.
we're trying to get involved with and influence, and for the betterment of everyone involved. Let's remember that the end users of it.
There's an industry commitment to improve the standards and safety of electrical installations across the board, and that, as I say, that's a commitment. And so I'm extremely hopeful that things will get better quite quickly. At the moment, we don't know for sure, so we can't say for sure.
Right, that's all I've really got here. We've got some other questions sort of coming in here. We've done 25 minutes here. People are coming in with a few, so we can see some of them coming in. Right, one question I actually got of someone who was watching last week. Someone last month. Someone was out there watching. We're not just doing this for no reason. Someone was out there, and they said to me, right, okay then, can you tell me why we cannot pull the main fuse?
Why we can't?
Yeah. Well, so doing a consumer change or disboard change, they were saying some areas allows them to, some areas. I've done some work on this one. In the past, I've been working.
I'm interested in what you've got to say, and I'm certainly going to have to chime in.
Well, when we started to look at this one, we went around the country, or me and my colleague at the time, about 4 or 5 years ago, went around the country, talking to a lot of people, saying what's going on, what areas can you, what areas can't you, and some were saying, actually, you know what? Some areas we're allowing, if you're NRC, EIC registered back at the time, before we were with Alexa as well, and saying as long as you want to register, you tell us what you're going to do, you can pull it. Then you went into another postcode and they were saying, no, you can't pull it at all.
The problem is there's no answer, no one answer.
Yeah.
And very much, you have to remember that, I'm sure HSC would say, if it's distress change, don't in any circumstances work live.
Yeah, that's the big thing.
And I don't know how the network operators would react. They would have to describe their position on that. Currently, I'm aware of one system in place where you can, with the agreement of the provider, there's a procedure you go through which allows you to cut seals and replace seals. Apart from that, generally, I mean, we were in negotiations, and I think we still are.
We one time, aren't we?
2010, I think we were quite close to an agreement, and then that didn't happen. In the meantime, we've had no approval per se to agree that contractors can remove seals. We are still discussing. I would say that I would certainly, before I did anything, unless it was a distress change and it was dangerous not to do it, then I would certainly consult my local supplier and ask them for guidance on it.
Yeah, I think.
But please, working live is not an alternative.
But that's the big thing, isn't it? That's the risk. That's the risk. What is the risk? The risk is maybe telling off by the DNO, or the risk there is probably someone saying, "Hold on a minute, you're working live." The working live is the bit, isn't it?
But that would be in an extreme situation, a distress change. Where something's alight.
Yeah. It's big board's melted.
That is a safe one. Please, if you're working, if you're in that situation, you need to be wearing proper protective equipment. You're talking about 400 amp fuses and bore.
Well, that's it. You consider you're holding on to that main fuse. What's that backed up with? Like I say, 200 amp, 400 amp fuse. If something goes wrong, that's going to be a big arc that goes wrong there. That's why a lot of them, when you see,
need to proceed with caution.
All that stuff they're wearing. Right, we've answered one of Simon's questions here but he's popped up with another one. No. You only get 3, all right? This is the second one, Simon, so we've got this one here. If I have a 100 amp service fuse with a sub-main fuse at 80 amps, because of the tail length, is there anything stopping me upgrading the 80 amp fuse to a 100 amp fuse due to the loading requirements? And he's gone on to say, appreciate discrimination between the fuses. Well, it's changed now, isn't it? It's selectivity between the fuses is what they're asking now. You've got it.
I'm not really clear why I would want to do that.
Well, that's it. Elaborate on that a little bit more, because couldn't you use that first one?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, what would be the difference?
Yeah.
I don't.
So he's probably gone from a main fuse, 100 amp in there, some tails into an isolator,
and then a sub-main,
an 80 amp, and then a sub-main going out.
Yeah.
But he needs 100 amps back at in the installation. Needs 100 amp. Could he take that out and put his own in? I think this is all around the fact that you're not ownership of that main fuse, are you?
No, you can't. And so you'd need to have your supply upgraded. And you know what? More and more now we find out that you're not provided with 100 amps anyway. Often maximum of 80. And in smaller installations, 60 amps.
Yeah, a lot of them are just dropping down there. Now you can get it where you don't need to put that isolator in there. And again, some of the DNOs will say, yeah, that's okay. You can go more than that. It used to be a 3 metre rule, didn't it?
Well, I mean, BS 767 still refers to that. I think it was a 2 or 3 metres depending on where.
You're right. Yeah. So
bearing in mind, guys, you know, if you take the service fuse out, it's going to cost you a few quid to get it replaced.
Yeah.
So some suppliers say under no circumstances. Other suppliers are less concerned, but it's your responsibility.
Right, Stuart's got this one here for us. So Stuart got here, in a minor work scenario where adding a additional socket to a circuit without RCD protection in a domestic case, are we obliged to RCD protect it? This is the socket, I believe they're looking at one here.
Yeah. You need to, you know, the additional alteration must comply with the current regulations, or the regulations it's designed to, which pretty soon was going to be the current regulations. So yes, you would need to RCD protect that, and often the easiest way is to protect the whole circuit. And then you get the benefits of the RCD, the additional protection.
But I mean, we have seen some people want to avoid this. So what they've done is, out of where they broke into the existing ring finder circuit, they've gone surface to a surface patch truss. They put a socket on there, and that socket, again, that still has to be protected. So they've had to put an RCD socket on there. So they've done that.
It seems quite elaborate, really, and quite frankly, I think I'd be looking personally at an RCBO in the board if the board
would allow. Another way that we've seen some people do it, and this was a housing association, where they broke into the ring, they put a switch fuse spur that incorporates an RCD, and then the cable can go back into the wall at depth of less than 50 mil, and the socket's protected.
That's often used for lighting circuits.
They do, additions for those, now we've got some. Someone's asked here, firefighters use hooks to bring down ceilings to check fires are out. Some sparks think that the ceiling is fire rated. They don't need to use fire rated clips. Well, what are your thoughts on that one? Well, this is where we spoke last time about this, and we looked at if your cables are within the fabric of the building, so above that plasterboard ceiling and stuff like that, then at that point there, and let's not forget the premature part of the regulation as well, that's a really important bit, that you can still use plastic clips or tie-ups. If after, as you said in your bit here, Chaz, you've gone in and they're using hooks to bring down the ceiling, they're already aware of some of the risks there. So at that point there, if they're going really looking for more fire, they've got to be aware of some of the risks, and cables coming down are one of the risks. If
we're talking about suspended ceilings, the cable shouldn't be on the suspended ceiling, of course, but permanent ceilings, as you say.
And Simon's come back with his last and final question. They've got it. That's it. So this is it, Simon, right? So he's got, thanks guys for it meant changing the sub main fuse, which is the landlord owned. So he's gone, main fuse is owned by the DNO. You've gone from there, you've gone to the sub main fuse, which is
part of the insulation.
Now can he change that? I'd say probably not, because you're not going to get the, as it used to be, discrimination between the two, the selectivity between the two. You could, however, look to put a different type of device in there, which may give you a different characteristic. But if it's the load requirement you're looking for here, you need the full 100 amps, you're really going to have to look around probably. I doubt really though you need 100 amps.
If you've got a maximum demand of 100 amps.
You're using a lot. There's an awful lot in it. I mean, nowadays, Jake just sitting the other side of the cameras here, he's done some work with some DNO guys, and they were saying typically a dwelling now or an installation, you're going past daytime, using it 8 amps.
8 to 12 amps. And you know what?
It's crazy, isn't it?
As crazy as that may seem, if you're close by and you've got a clamp on, go next door and find out. Generally, it's very low. And when they're actually designing the network, that's the basis.
That's true. That's what they
don't add up the 100 amp fuses.
No, they don't. No. They imagine the size of the cables. Be enormous, wouldn't they? So you can see that one there. Right, I think we're going to bring this one to an end. Before I do so, I need to just say thank you to everyone that's been involved in this one. We know lots of people watch this later on when they can do. Don't forget, if you believe this isn't the right time for us to do this during the day, you're too busy doing what you should be doing, installing cables and stuff like that, let us know. The feedback that you give us we'll be looking at, and if it means we do it at a different part of the evening, it might be in a pub somewhere. Being John might find a nice little nook in the locals, sitting there with a nice pint of something. But again, please, if you want to know when these are happening, there's a link that you can have a look at. You can go to the bell icon. The bell icon will then let you know when you can see it first. And that see it first, if you indicate that, whenever we come live, it will indicate to you when me and John, or if it's someone else from the team again, are giving you a technical live option of what's going on out there. We really appreciate all this feedback. It's absolutely brilliant. These questions are really good. You and your team have been inundated, haven't you? But
absolutely. And could I just say, guys, please continue to use the helpline. You know, we're there to help. We enjoy talking to you guys, and we understand your problems because most of us have done it.
And if you're registered with EIC Alexa, you'll get priority into that one, won't they? So they get priority calls. They come in, you queue jump effectively, don't you?
Well, there's 2 queues. We would always service our resident contractors before we go to low priority line.
Yeah. So again, and do that. And again, that's if you're registered with EIC, EIC or Alexa. Plus that customer portal. It's really important. If you haven't done so already, have a look at that one. I know John and his team are going to be looking at that in the future.
Loads of good stuff on there, guys.
There's loads of stuff for you to look at. But until next time, and again, we'll be looking to do the next one of these, again, the last Friday of the month at 11 AM. Until that time, from me, John, and Jake, trust me, he's waving as well. Take care, guys, and we hope to see you again soon.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.